Very much appreciate that. It's such an honor to be here. I do know that the Chancellor mentioned that I went to East Carolina and I've been fairly successful. But what in the world could I have done if I'd have come to Appalachia? It would have been great. I could have been much more successful, I'm sure. I'm delighted to have my daughter with me here today, and it's such an honor to be speaking in this series. Senator, thank you so much for your comments. Senator Broyhill, I'm sure you all know, is one of the most accomplished business leaders and statesmen in our country, in the world, and it's quite an honor to represent Harlan Boyles in this speech. He was a gentleman, a scholar, and clearly the most outstanding treasurer anywhere in the country, and I suppose in the world. A very, very accomplished person. We're so proud to be here to represent them. And it's great to be with all of you today. I appreciate all the students coming out. I know you volunteered to come out, and probably doesn't hurt to get a little credit, but hopefully maybe we can make it worth your while. Thanks for being here. You know, these are extraordinary times, and what I want to try to do in a brief period of time is give you something to take away, something that will be useful for you as you go through the remainder of your time here at AMP and on into the business world, and certainly for our business and community leaders, something that may be applicable to you in terms of leading your organization as well. You know, it's kind of staggering when you back away and look at some of the developments over the last year or so. Certainly we have been through a period of 15 years of almost unlimited prosperity. We've been through a period of time of overspending, undersaving, underproducing, that left this country ready for a major correction, and boy have we had that. September, just a little over a year ago, we saw a near financial collapse. Those of you in the financial area that lived during that period of time, it was an unbelievably shaky period in terms of our overall economic structure. We certainly have seen a lot of government actions that have been taking place during that period of time, but I think it's most interesting that we've had a 31% drop in housing prices, 6.9 million jobs lost, $14 trillion lost in America's net worth, 9.7% unemployment, and we're going to be facing a slow recovery. Even this past Friday, we lost another 263,000 jobs on top of that, raising the unemployment rate to 9.8%. So I know the luncheon speaker declared that the recession is over, and I'm real glad to hear that. But I will say to you that the economy, at least from a banker perspective, is still having a very, very difficult period of time. And I think as we go through the remainder of this year and on into next year, it's going to be a recovery, but it's going to be a very slow recovery, because when you have this many people out of work and when it is for a protracted period of time, what you see is it has a continuous and an exponential impact on the economy as those loss of jobs drains the consumption power away from the consuming public. And so we can expect to see a recovery, but we can expect to see a slow recovery, which is why I really want to talk to you about leadership today, because when you're going through a difficult period of time, and this is true about your personal life, your community life, and certainly in business, what you will find is that it is the greatest opportunity to develop leadership skills. Leadership becomes much more critical in difficult times. The truth is, when you end a period of prosperity like in the 90s and the first part of this decade, it wasn't that hard to be a good leader. Almost anyone could be successful when the economy was booming, as it was during that period of time. It is when times get difficult that leadership is born. It is when times are difficult that leaders really differentiate themselves in terms of their ability to contribute to whatever they're involved in leading. And so I want to share with you some thoughts about leadership, because what I've found in studying this now for about 37 years is there are lots and lots of books, thousands, periodicals, seminars you can go to, but most people do not have a grasp of the very simple essence of leadership. And so as we have studied it at BB&T over the years, what we've realized is that leadership in conceptual structure is actually very simple. The essence of the difficulty is in the execution, because of course as leaders you're almost always executing through human beings. But what we found is a very simple model, as you see illustrated here, actually describes best the process of leadership. And that is that behaviors are a function of beliefs and results are a function of behaviors. Well, you may look at that and say, well, that's pretty self-evident, but actually it's not very self-evident in the way individuals tend to lead companies. What happens when most individuals are leading companies is they focus on the results. So in our business, for example, you see individual leaders go out and say, make more loans, get more deposits, get more fee income. The problem is that's not very helpful, because if people could already have gotten more of that, they would have already done so. And so, in fact, what leaders should do is focus on the training to train the behaviors that will create the appropriate results in their business. But the real genius of this model is that people behave in a manner that is consistent with their beliefs. Over time, if you will observe people, you will find that consistently people behave in a manner that is consistent with their beliefs. And so, if you want to change people's behavior, you have to change their beliefs. Now, it is true that positive reinforcement, some of you probably studied this in some of your psychological courses, positive reinforcement does help reinforce behaviors, but the truth is most people respond best to belief change. And so what leaders really do is to teach beliefs. And over a period of time, if you can get a group of people that you're trying to lead to share the beliefs that you hold to be true, then you will find that they will follow those beliefs. But how does the whole issue of leadership and belief change relate to motivation? I know many, many times over the years I've heard leaders talk about, well, you know, the real problem with this person, you maybe have heard your professor say this, they're just not motivated. You know, if you just get Joe, if you just get Mary motivated, everything would be okay. That is simply not true. It turns out that everyone is motivated. People are intrinsically motivated, and Maslow summed it up very well several decades ago with his hierarchy of needs. Maslow said basically people are motivated out of these needs: physiological, safety, social, self-esteem, and self-actualization, and in that kind of hierarchical order. Now, what I've studied and learned over the years is that I would choose to frame it slightly differently, because Maslow basically described it that you would only be motivated by a higher order of need after all of the lower order of needs are completely satisfied. That's not really true in the real world. It may be true in terms of physiological safety and food, but when you get into social and self-esteem and self-actualization, what we find is that people on a given day are motivated by some interaction of those various needs. And so the key is that people actually are motivated, that is, they are driven to satisfy these needs. Think about yourself. Obviously, you know, if you've been several days without anything to eat, you get to be really pretty hungry, and you are driven, you're energized, you're motivated to get something to eat, and that's the essence of motivation. Motivation is what drives us to action. But the key is that motivation drives according to what people believe. And so even if you have two people who are equally motivated, what you will find oftentimes is that they will behave very differently and get very different results. Let's take, for example, if Tom and Mary, for various reasons in terms of the way they grew up, one believes that stealing is good, one believes that stealing is a no-no. If you find both of those individuals extraordinarily hungry over some period of days and put them into the marketplace, what you'll find is the one that believes that stealing is good and okay will steal the food and satisfy the hunger need. The one that believes that stealing is bad would not dare steal, even though that person is significantly motivated. That person will actually go work, maybe sweeping the floor for the merchant or whatever, to earn the money to buy the food because of what they believe. So if you're in a leadership position, your challenge is, interestingly, not to motivate people. They're already motivated. Your challenge is to understand what it is that drives them. That is helpful. But your real challenge is to teach them the beliefs that will cause them to behave in a manner that is consistent with getting the results that you would like to accomplish in your organizational unit. So I wanted to give you a little bit of understanding of this issue of motivation and leadership, because people oftentimes are very, very confused about that. So the leadership challenge is to get people to do what it is they want them to do to accomplish their purposes. And generally, one of the most important areas of accomplishing a task for an organization is about creating a sense of passion, a sense of purpose. For example, at BB&T, we have a vision, and our vision is to create the best financial institution possible, the very best in the world. Our mission says we want to help our clients achieve economic success and financial security. We want to create a place where our employees can learn and work and be fulfilled in their accomplishments. We want to make the communities that we're involved in better places because of our involvement. And we want to ultimately optimize the long-term return to our shareholders while creating a safe and sound investment. And so we try to have employees that work for BB&T that believe in that vision. They share the belief of wanting to be the best. They believe in the mission of helping our clients be successful. And they believe in our values. Values then get to be very, very important in life because values are fundamental and deep beliefs. And so I want to share with you some thoughts about values and then talk to you a little bit about the BB&T values because I think you'll find them to be universally true. So we have 10 core values at BB&T, and these values help drive the activities, the behaviors of our employees. So what values do, beliefs do, is they create kind of the standard of how you act every way. They're kind of practical habits. You can think of a value as a preconceived notion. It's something that you've thought about for some period of time. You've reached a conclusion, and this is important to you, and that's the way you have chosen to act. Values make living every day very, very practical. So, for example, I suppose everybody in this room that has a belief, a fundamental belief that brushing your teeth is a good thing to do, right? But suppose you didn't have a preconceived notion, a belief about brushing your teeth. You get up in the morning, you sit on the side of the bed, and you say, well, I need to decide if I'm going to brush my teeth. You know, I know some people say you should brush your teeth. It certainly makes your teeth last longer, they say, and it makes your breath smell better. On the other hand, you got to buy the toothbrush and the toothpaste. You got to take all this time scrubbing your teeth, and after a while, you might just wear them out. I don't know. I'm kind of confused. Maybe I'll just go turn on the computer and check the latest research on whether you're going to brush your teeth or not. It'll take you 3 hours to figure out whether you're going to brush your teeth or not, right? You don't live your life that way, do you? You have certain preconceived notions, decisions you've made about how you're going to live your life. And that's why values, that's why deep beliefs are so important, is because once they are formed, they will guide the way you act. And the way you act will create your results in life. And so at BB&T, we have 10 core values, and we think about them in 4 categories in terms of character, judgment, success, and happiness. I actually started thinking about this some time ago, and I was trying to think about a practical way to frame our values, and I was thinking about, you know, if I were to die today and 2 days from now someone's trying to preach my funeral, how would I like to be described? And I bet this is similar to the way you would like to be described. I'd like for someone to be able to say this was a person that had good character, and during his life he generally tried to exercise good judgment, and he was successful. But understanding that success in life does not always end up in happiness, ultimately, he was a happy person. I think that's what you want for yourself, it's what you want for your kids, it's what you want for those people that are close and dear to you. And so we think about our core values in that regard. And honesty is the fundamental value. Honesty is the fundamental value because without honesty, there can be no trust. Without trust, there can be no relationships. And without relationships, there can be no organizational or societal advancement. So honesty is the foundational value. And I believe honesty needs to be absolute. Now, there's some people that would like to debate that with you today. Some people will say honesty can be relative to the circumstances. It's kind of a continuum. It can be variable. Well, I would take real issue with that. I believe you should be 100% honest. And if you don't think it's really important, you go home tonight and talk to someone that you love, your parents or your spouse or a significant other, and say, I heard this fellow talking today, and he was talking about values, and he specifically was talking about honesty, and he says honesty ought to be an absolute. And your significant other looked at you and said, well, are you honest with me? And you said, well, sure I am. I'm honest, 99% of the time. Well, that raises a very important question, doesn't it? What 1% of the time are you not honest with me? And if there's 1% of the time that you're not honest with me, how can I completely trust you? And if I can't completely trust you, how can I depend on you? And if I can't depend on you, how can we have a mutually beneficial relationship on which we can build our family, build our company, build our community? So honesty becomes the very bedrock value. And integrity is about living honesty and all of your values consistently over a long period of time. So then what about judgment? We talk about reality, reason, and independent thinking. What we want for all of our associates, and I would suggest to you would be a very appropriate way for you to think logically, is to start with reality, starting with the facts. That may seem like a bromide to you, but I'll tell you, one of the greatest challenges we have in the world today is people are making decisions not based on the facts. They're making decisions based on what they wish were so or what they hope could be true. But in fact, when you're making logical, rational decisions, you must always start with reality. Start with the facts, because whether you admit it or not, it is reality, and you will not change it. And then once you understand the facts of the situation, it is important for you to use your brain and to rationally think about the issue. You may say, well, that sounds obvious too, but do you know that's not what happens most of the time? Most of the people today, when you walk up and down the street, and this is true, I think, especially when we're growing up in life, and you ask people what they think about this or that, they'll almost always give you an answer, but it'll almost always be based on what someone else said. What they saw on TV, what they read, somebody else told them. It'll be someone else's opinion rather than their own reasoning with regard to the facts. And that's why it is so important to be an independent thinker. You want to think for yourself. And I'm sure that the professors here at this great university have challenged the students to think for yourself. Don't take what people have given you over life. Some of it's good and some of it may not be so good. You should think for yourself about the issues that are at hand, because it is your life and it is your decision, and it is important for you to make those decisions for yourself. So what about success? Success we talk about in terms of productivity, teamwork, and justice. The most important element of success is at the very personal level. That's why productivity is so important. It is especially important in the environment we're in today. Productivity is about that individual commitment to act. It is about your individual commitment to getting the job done, making that discretionary effort of your time and energy to be responsible for getting the job done. I have a picture hanging in my office that I've had for a long time, and it's a picture of a mountain scene. And there's no one in the mountain scene except one man trying to climb the mountain, and he's almost at the top. And the slogan at the bottom of the picture is, "If it is to be, it is up to me." And I've always thought that was a very important slogan, a statement of personal responsibility. And we find as we go through life, if you'll hold on to that personal responsibility, not look to the left and not look to the right, see what typically happens is people will look for somebody else. I've been to 1,000 meetings, Senator, where somebody would say, this is a really important topic or this is an important issue and somebody ought to do something about it. You know what the problem is? There is no somebody. I've been looking for them for 37 years. They don't have a phone, no email. There's nowhere out there you can find them. There is no somebody. There's just you and me. And ultimately, that sense of personal responsibility is what will drive your productivity. And then you'll be more successful if you also understand that it is critical to work cooperatively, mutually supportively in teams. You see individuals that try to strive for themselves and never care about the team, they will never be as successful as those who will look at the team and try to help them be successful as well. And then justice in a capitalistic society is about those that produce the most should and will earn the most. They will reap the higher rewards because they produce the most. And that is something I think in our country we should feel very, very proud of, something we should fight hard to protect, because ultimately that is one of the things that is motivating. It is one of those things that creates self-esteem. It's that you work hard. You work harder than everybody else in class, and you ought to get an A. But think about a situation. If you walked into a class and the professor said, well, I don't care how hard all of you work. Some of you work hard. Some of you not work so hard. Some of you do the work. Some of you don't do the work. All of you are going to get B's. That wouldn't be very satisfying with you. Now, if you happen to be a lower student, you might say that's a good deal. But if you're an achiever, then you want to try to have a chance to get to the top, get the A plus, if you're willing to make the effort to get the job done. And then what about happiness? How does happiness really occur? Well, happiness is about a sense of self-esteem and pride. Self-esteem is that warm inner feeling, that inner scorecard that we all have that lets us know how we feel about how we are living our lives. It is whether we feel good about what we are accomplishing or not. Self-esteem is something that you can only earn for yourself. Many people get confused about self-esteem, parents especially. Parents talk about, well, you know, Joe or Mary doesn't have good self-esteem. How can I get them some self-esteem? You can't give anybody self-esteem. It's self-esteem because it has to be derived by the person. If somebody else could give it to you, we'd call it we-esteem or they-esteem, right? It's not we-esteem or they-esteem, it's self-esteem because you have to create it for yourself. And self-esteem is created by those opportunities that come along in life where you have the opportunity to do something really special and important. I tell my associates at the bank, I was just using as an example, let's suppose that it's in Boone and you worked at our branch down the street here and you were the branch manager. And it's 6:15 one Friday afternoon, it's 29 degrees outside, it's sleeting and snowing, it's a really, really bitter day. You've worked hard all week, the bank's supposed to close at 6, but you kept it open to 6:15 to see if anybody needed to come in. You've just shut the door, you head into the back to lock the vault and you hear a tap, tap, tap on the door. Now you look out at the corner of your eye and you see a nice older lady standing there holding up her Social Security check that she desperately wants to get in the bank before it closes so she'll feel safe and secure for the weekend. You have a decision to make. You have every right to go right on and shut the vault and go home. She is late, it's 6:15. Or you can turn around, you can go back and you can open that door, bring her in, dry her off, take that deposit, give her a safe deposit receipt so she'll feel safe and secure for the weekend, take her back out to the car with your one umbrella holding it over her, keeping her dry while you get soaking wet. You go back, you lock the door, you lock the vault, you go home, you dry off, and finally you take a deep breath and you say, wow, that really feels good. I did the right thing. And you have that warm feeling about that nice lady at home now feeling safe and secure. And you have these opportunities in life that come along all the time, sometimes several a day, sometimes several a week. The real challenge, the real opportunity in life is to grab those opportunities and to build up your reservoir of good feeling about yourself because you grabbed those opportunities, you did the right thing, and you built your self-esteem. By the way, when you don't do those, you lower your self-esteem. And people that go through life with low self-esteem have missed those opportunities to grab a hold of doing the right thing and building up that sense of self-worth, that sense of knowing that they have done the right thing. And then pride is about living your life well over a long period of time. It is about living your values. It is about consistently over your life, doing the best you can do. Not always, none of us are perfect, but for the majority of time, living your way so that you're justly proud of what you've accomplished and how you lived your life, and so that you're happy to explain to anybody that asks how you've made decisions, how you lived your life, what you've accomplished. Not a sense of arrogance, just a sense of nice, warm, inner sense of accomplishment, a sense of real pride in terms of what you have accomplished. And so if